Hello, everybody. How have you been? Good, good, good. How do you feel about that, mask mandate lifting? Yeah, I'm judging you guys. No, I'm kidding. I actually felt really safe and secure. Didn't have to groom myself. I just wore a hat. Never had to do my hair. But now I still don't do my hair. But yeah, so I just want to thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us online. When you join us at church, you don't really do this only for yourself. You're actually doing this for the rest of the community too, right? So look around you. Awkward eye contacts, yeah. Okay, when you come, this is us coming together in support as a community in prayer that God reveals himself and that he moves in us. And so, thank you for coming. For those who work jobs, you know often that it is the community oftentimes that makes or breaks the job, right? So you can have the perfect job description, the perfect dream career, and yet if you have just terrible coworkers, if you have a micromanager that just ruins your experience, then that dream job becomes a nightmare easily. But it's the same opposite for the other way around. So if you have a terrible job or a tough job, but with really good coworkers, right? Last year, a friend reached out to me to ask me to work part-time at the Mustard Seed homeless shelter because they needed extra support during COVID. And so I interviewed, I got the job, and bam, I'm working. And I got introduced to the team. And my first impression of the team was that they were so cool, okay? These people, I was part of the night shift, but the morning shift and the evening shift, a bunch of old people. Night shift was a bunch of young, cool people like me, okay? So I fit in. And even the way they dressed was cool. And that makes no sense because we all have the same uniform, okay? So I don't know what it is. It's one of those things where you see a clothes on mannequin and you buy it and it looks so much cooler on the mannequin than it does on you. And it's the way that they treat each other, right? They're good friends. It's the way that they serve together, right? They go above and beyond to just love on the guests at the shelter. And I remember the first shift I had, we got together during our staff meeting and they prayed for me and for other staff members, and that was just really nice. A few months later, Christine gave birth. They got us a gift. And then a few months later after that, it was my birthday, and they threw a little surprise party thing in the office where they got a huge Mexicana deep dish pizza, which is super yummy. And I'm just dude, this community loves me. These people love me. And I just loved being a part of that. It's not the most glamorous or fun job, but it was the community that really made me proud and even I felt privileged to be a part of that team, of that mission, to have friends like that. And so easily you can see that an amazing community with amazing culture, it makes and breaks a job. But easily we can say the same thing for the local church as well. So as we're going through our series on mental health, it's just supernatural to just talk about community. Because healthy communities and healthy relationships, it makes a huge difference. As we go through life together, as we enjoy it together, as we support one another, as we speak truth to each other, as we really empower one another in the mission of God, our mental health is going to be much better if we do it together like that than alone. And so on that note, the question we're looking at today is, how can we shape an amazing community? In our context, right, the church, how can we become the church that Christ intended? What does the church even look like? And I think a wonderful summary description of such a church is found in our passage today, which is Romans 12:15, where Paul says, "Rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep." We're all going to memorize this today, so just repeat after me. Rejoice with those who rejoice, and weep with those who weep. Okay, we memorized it. That's good, right? Okay, Romans 12:15. Okay, perfect. An authentic, Christ-following, healthy church is filled with members who, out of their faith, can deeply identify with others to the point where they love their neighbors as themselves. And Jesus told us that this is the mark of the disciples. This is the mark of the church. And when we get it right, we can get this love that is attractive to the communities outside of the church as well. So we're looking at 2 points today on how we can cultivate such a community. The first is logic, where we're going to go through just the theory, the why of, like, why do we even care for people? I don't know. And then 2, we're going through empathy, all right? And that's more the practical, like, what does this look like in our everyday lives? So we'll start with the logic. I like to think of myself as a logical, reasonable, rational person. But in the everyday, I always find myself doing things that are completely irrational. Okay, and here's an example. When I'm working at home, I'm sitting at my counter, and something pulls me up and draws me to the fridge or the pantry. And what I do is I open it, I look inside, see if there's anything to eat. Nothing. Okay, that's good. I'm trying to lose weight anyways. So I go back to the counter, I sit down, and that's it, right? Until 5 minutes later, something pulls me up, draws me to the fridge, and I do the same thing. I do it over and over and over again for like the whole day. And it's so illogical. Like, what am I expecting? That within those 5 minutes, someone's like breaking into my house, throwing in a bag of chips into the pantry, and then running out, and then I'll be like, oh, nice, a bag of chips. Like, what am I hoping for? It's illogical, right? I think I'm waiting for my standards to go down so I eat like vegetables, but it's little things like this, it's okay. I'm wasting minutes a day. When it comes to big things like community, relationships, it matters that we build our foundations on a proper logic and reasoning. So every time I've personally been taught about empathy, this is how it works, okay? It's like, hey, Tim, come here. I'm like, yo, what? Like, okay, look at that person over there, right? Look how sad he looks. So put yourself in that person's shoes. How do you feel? Bad, right? Okay, since you feel bad, then you should help them out. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, right? And that's good, okay? That's actually a good thing. It's good for your EQ. It works until it doesn't work. Okay, until you have a tired day, until you're too busy, until that person is actually someone you really, really don't like, then you're like, I don't really care. And even at the base level, it's not very apparent and obvious why we should even help them get out of that bad place. It's like, sure, they feel better, but what's in it for me, right? And so we're going to go back to logic, the why, the reasoning. Our passage today, you all memorized it, rejoicing with those who rejoice and weeping with those who weep. Before we even get there are a lot of things happening in the book of Romans where Paul spends a lot of time explaining the why, right? He's explaining the logic behind it. And we're going to follow this logic. And what we're going to do is we're going to summarize all of Romans 1 to 11, maybe the most complex and dense chapters of the Bible, into like a few sentences. So it's not going to do any justice, but just follow along. From Romans 1 to 11, he talks about our sin and how we're just helplessly stuck in evil, right? Evil in ourselves, evil around us. You can see it nowadays very apparently. And we're just hopeless in that. And then Paul talks about the beautiful, extensive work of God's mercy that comes through Jesus so that we can have salvation and adoption into his family. And this is something we can be super confident about. Tim Keller kind of summarizes it like this. He quotes, or I'm quoting, "We are more sinful and flawed in ourselves than we ever dared believe. Yet at the very same time, we are more loved and accepted in Jesus Christ than we ever dare hoped." And so it's with this idea, right, this base important idea, that we come to Romans 12, okay? Romans 12 is where things get applicable, things become real, that's how it looks like in real life. So Romans 12:1 is this: "Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy," so in the light of everything God has done, "to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship." Now, Paul is saying here, Paul is the author of Romans, by the way. Paul is saying that when you consider everything that God has done for you and has done for humanity and has done for all of creation, the way you respond to his invitation to join him is to say yes with your whole life, to be completely devoted to that. And it's not like this command where it's just like you're dragging your feet and you're like, oh, fine, like if you're holding it over my head, I'll do it. No, this is actually just the most sensible thing ever. When Paul is saying at the end there, this is your true and proper worship, that word proper in Greek, it literally means logical. Okay, that word is logical. This is the most reasonable, sensible thing that you can do. And so it's as reasonable as like looking outside and seeing a blizzard and being like, instead of wearing this t-shirt, I'm going to put on a jacket, right? You don't contemplate it, you just do it. It's just that simple. And let's say, okay, cool, we're convinced of this, we're committed to Christ, we want to be devoted to his work. What does this look like, especially when it comes to the community? So we're going to continue Paul's logic as he moves from how we do our personal worship and how that looks like when we live it out towards others in the church. And we're looking at Romans 12, 9 to 16. So love must be free of hypocrisy. In other translations, it says love must be sincere. Detest what is evil, cling to what is good, be devoted to one another in brotherly love, give preference to one another in honor, not lagging behind in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, persevering in tribulation, devoted to prayer, contributing to the needs of the saints are other Christians, practicing hospitality. Bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse. Here's a verse we already memorized. Rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. Be of the same mind towards one another. And it's just like, wow, what a beautiful image of what an authentic Christ-following community looks like. It's a place where people just give themselves up for one another because they are of the same mind, they're of the same spirit, they're of the same mission, they're of the same goals. And so here's the thing. As Christ followers, we have so much more in common with each other than just the fact that we share this building every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. We have so much more in common than just the fact that we have similar hobbies or we have the same background or we're from YYC. Our church has to be built in more than just that. So when we understand the work of God and who we are in Jesus, it all of a sudden becomes illogical to look at other people and like say, I'm either better than them or worse than them because we all have the same story, right? I was once lost and now I'm found. It becomes illogical to put others down because we all have the same likeness. I'm made in God's image. Jesus died for me. It becomes illogical to not care for other people's hurts and joys because we're all working towards the same thing as a team, right? If you think of any team thing, so whether that's sports, whether that's video games, whether that's board games, I don't really know about the other two because I don't do those, but if you think about that, then you want your teammates to do as well as they can because their goals are your goals. Their losses are your losses. And so it's the same within the church. Whatever we do for others, we not only do for ourselves, we not only do as our worship to God, but we also do for ourselves and do for every other Christian out there. So this kind of deeper logic, this reasoning, is often lost within the busyness of our days, right? The why aspect of our faith, right? If you just told someone, hey, love others because the Bible said so, it's true, yeah, right, but it's not very motivating. It doesn't really move you. It's just like, okay, cool. And so I think we need to dive deeper into the logic, the beauty, even the glory of God in his words, and that will move us in ways unimaginable. So to this end, be intentional about growing your faith, right? Be intentional. Look at the Bible slowly. Go through it slowly. You can listen to Bible Project podcasts. You can find good expository preaching online. Commit yourself to a community that is of the same goal of growing. And as you do that, I think your reasoning based on God's word will lead you to understand that having empathy towards others is the most logical thing to do. So for our second point, empathy, let's just we're just going to brainstorm what that practically looks like as we live out this love in our community, in our church. Before we start there, I want to introduce you to someone. This is George, okay? George has a happy face because he lives in Popsicle Land, okay? And Popsicle Land is just this thriving, rich city with unlimited potential, unlimited opportunities. But the thing is, he used to come from Stick World, okay? So Stick World's like the Northeast. No, I'm kidding. Stick World is just the ghetto. Stick World is like where people get hurt, where people work labor jobs. It's tough. The only reason he's in Popsicle World is because Popsicle Land is because his parents gave up their lives pretty much, working day and night so that he can be here and he can have a future. That's why he's happy. But actually, these days, he's actually sad. That's a sad face if you can't see it. He's sad because he doesn't fit in. Okay, no one understands him. He's never felt more lonely than he does right now because all of his friends and family are in Stick World. The only time he felt connected to someone was when people were using him for his grades, but he still has hopes. He still has aspirations. And okay, so that's George. Okay, this is a popsicle stick. It's wood. Kids put it in their mouth, often used for crafts. Okay. I might have done psychological damage to you. I'm sorry. I'll sign a waiver form, right? Be honest. Which one hurt more? Which one killed your soul a bit? The first experience of seeing the popsicle stick break, or the second one? George, right? Yo, what? Second? Okay. Environmentalist. No. This the first one, right? Because George, he had a name, he had a backstory, he even had like pen marks that made a face. We love George. But at the end of the day, they're the exact same things. They're inanimate, lifeless popsicle sticks. So what just happened is all of you just had an emotional relationship to some degree with that popsicle stick. Okay? So that should be a badge. That's weird. That's weird, okay? That might be illogical. But at the same time, I just want to say that is a beautiful, wonderful, and human thing to have, right? The ability to attach ourselves to the lives of others and be in tune with them to the point where we feel their joys and we feel their hurts, that is a gift. Okay, at Zoe, you would see that and you point at it and you're like, you're sensitive. No, like, that's not right. It's not a mistake. It's by design, okay? It's by design to have those feelings. And when we cultivate that natural sense of empathy that you just had with George, together with proper logic that comes from our faith, we can use that to just create these beautiful, meaningful, life-changing relationships. And that is such a good gift. Like, imagine the opposite. Imagine if you lived a life where you just didn't care about anyone and everything you did was just for yourself. That sounds terrible, right? So let's do this. Let's just walk through the nuances in this point of what it looks like to rejoice with others and what it looks like to weep with those who weep, how that's lived out, how that affects the way that we shape our community. And so first off, rejoicing with those who rejoice. Super easy, super straightforward. You see someone like having a good time over there, you go over there, and you like have a good time with them too. Done, okay? Next point. No, I'm kidding. No, this is, if you think about it a little bit deeper, this is actually really hard, right? This is really hard. Back in Ottawa, I graduated from Carleton University, and I was getting a lot of job interviews with various government branches. And so I got through multiple rounds, multiple times, and at the end of the day, I never got a job. My friends at the church I was at, they're Christian, they're deeply supportive of me. I would say I genuinely love them. Over the months, they slowly got these various government jobs. And to their face, I'm like, oh man, congrats, I'm so happy for you. But deep down, it really did something to me, okay? I couldn't be happy for them because all I could focus on was the fact that they got the jobs I wanted, and they probably think, or maybe even talk amongst themselves and say like, oh, Tim's like undesirable, or he's like stupid or something, right? Their success, their rejoice, it gave me anxiety. It made me insecure. It made me feel like I was less. And so that's common, right? It might not be a job, but in that case, it was the job. It could be any aspect of life, whether that's grades or what schools you get into, or careers, possessions, relationships, marriages, kids, or even the fact that some kids seem like geniuses and yours may not seem like it. And it feels like a slap in the face whenever someone is rejoicing about something that you desperately want and you don't have. This is the struggle we have when we are asked to rejoice with those who rejoice. How do we fight it? I don't know. I just don't know. This is such a deeply rooted issue. This is, if you think about it, this comparing, this competitive culture, that runs our world, that runs our industries, that runs our economy. So it's deeply rooted in us. But I think I have two suggestions that can help. The first is to remember what Pastor David talked about last week, that it is right for us to have high self-esteem because of who we are in Jesus. Right? When we build ourselves on that, that should define us. That should fulfill us. And so whatever it is that we don't have, we can know with confidence that we have so much more in Jesus and his promises. The second is the logic that we talked about today. We share this common goal, we share this common prize, and therefore their successes should be our successes. And to make it a bit more clear, you can think about it this way. Imagine I had this really crappy car, 1990 Cambria or something. David also has a really crappy car, same thing. No, not right now, just hypothetically, okay. And then one day, he gets a brand new car. How do I feel about it? Well, maybe a part of me is like jealous. I'm like, what? We do the same job. Actually, I have to deal with youth. They're even worse than, I'm kidding, no. I love youth. Yeah, this is not fair. I'm not happy for him. I'm envious. And let's say on the same day, my parents also get the same brand new car. How do I feel about that? I'm like, oh man, I was going to get that for them anyways, eventually. Like, I'm so happy for them. They deserve it. Now they're safe. They're saving money on fuel economy. What is happening? Why these same experiences, and yet there's different results? And I think easily you can just say that it's because you feel so much more closely identified with your parents than you do with other people. But if you think about it, okay, I think what is greater than the bond of family? I would say it's the bond of Christ. That's the thing that brings us together as Christians. And so how does this affect the way we shape our community? Well, it creates an environment, a church, where a person can be sure that the people around them wants the best for them, right? And because of that, they feel open. Like, if you can see that other people are sharing in your joys, you can feel safe and open to share about the things that hurt, right? I mean, think about it. If you share your joys, everyone's like bitter and they treat you poorly after that, how could you ever feel safe to open up about the painful things, the hurtful things? And so this is important for the next part, which is weeping with those who weep. I do this terrible thing. I still do it. I don't know how to fix it. But when people come to me with problems, what I do is I take that problem, I deconstruct it to as many factors as I can think of. I tell them what they did wrong. I tell them what the dynamics of the problem, dynamics of the problems are. And then I give them potential solutions to fix the problem. Now, the problem with that, right, is most of the time when people do come to me with their problems, they're not looking for a solution, especially not at that moment. They're often looking for a friend to join them in processing what they have lost and how they have hurt. And so weeping with those who weep is more than just quickly fixing people's problems and then moving on with life. That's probably one of the easiest things that you can do. Think about what weeping even looks like, right? If someone weeping, that there's tears coming out, it's painful, right? Breaths are irregular, it's making you like shake your body weird. It's emotionally draining and overwhelming. It's this action that really takes all of who you are and you're in that suffering. If you think about that, I think when Paul tells us to weep with those who weep, it means that we're so closely connected to a person to the point where you feel their hurt on an emotional, a social, a mental, a physiological, a physical level. And sure, it may not look like physical weeping, especially if you never cry because you're super manly. I'm kidding. That's not good for your mental health. Instead of doing that, we want to be completely involved in their hurt, where you pause and you join in and you sacrifice your time, you sacrifice your emotions, you sacrifice your efforts to be a part of their lives in this deep, deep way. Because you understand that this is how you worship God. You understand that this is what Christ has done for us first. And you understand that their loss is your loss. And that their restoration is as important to you as it is to them. And this is how I think an amazing community is shaped, or at least one of the ways it's shaped. When individuals in their reasoning, in their faith, choose to love in a deeply empathetical way, this ripples, right? This is contagious. There's a chain reaction where other people imitate that love, and then others feel safe and vulnerable to open about issues that they have never opened up about because they're too embarrassed about it. And then as the church, as the body of Christ actually begins looking more and more like Christ, we become a community of healing, a community of restoration, a community of empowerment, a community that is good for your mental health. I just have to say that's part of our series. And it all starts with the logic that God has given us and the empathy that Jesus has shown us.